Hello and welcome to an Ignite Press book launch livecast. I am excited to bring to you just a terrific guy, honestly, as we talk about his book. Before I bring him on, I just want to let you know that this is something we do. We launch books, we publish books and launch books. And if we can help you with your book at any time, please reach out. You can always find us at ignitepress.us, ignitepress.us. We're all about helping people get their message out to the world. So please reach out if we can ever be of help. So today is a fun day. So I have Ed Chaffin here with me, and Ed's book is currently for sale on Amazon. It is our launch day, and there's a launch day special where you can pick up Uncommon Leadership for the New Reality on Amazon for 99 cents. Ed is the CEO and the founder of the Uncommon Leadership Institute. He's also a seasoned executive, a speaker, writer, and entrepreneur with tons of experience, quite frankly, in HR and talent development. He supports fellow executives. He works with leaders from 20 different countries and major companies like Caterpillar, Home Depot, and a bunch of other names that you would recognize. So let's bring on Ed. Ed, it is great to see you here. How are you doing today?
Woo. Well, taking some deep breaths because we threw a big party last night, actually, too. We threw a big book launch party. Over 100 people attended the club at Chatham where my wife teaches golf. And then we came home last night with about 30 people to celebrate my birthday, which is today.
Oh my goodness. As if launching a book wasn't a busy enough time, you decided to let's just add more to it, right?
Yeah, I did get that comment from a couple of people. You know, we're having two parties in one night. Are we 20 again? You know?
Oh my goodness. I actually understand you have a third party coming up as well. Am I right?
Yeah, we're having one Friday night in Charleston, South Carolina, where I grew up in my cousin's home and in downtown Charleston. And it was supposed to be, you know, an intimate gathering of about 12 or 15 people. But if you knew my cousin, and maybe Fran is on right now, I don't know if you are. Hi, Fran. But she doesn't do anything small. So we're going to have 35 to 40 people. So.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't quite sound like the little intimate gathering. Before we go too far, Ed, let me just let people know that if they have comments or questions, please use the chat log. Say hi. Let us know if you know questions, and I will be happy to pass them on to Ed as we go. So Ed, let's dive into this. Uncommon Leadership for the New Reality: 3 principles that drive greater awareness, engagement, and psychological safety. First, I guess before we get into the book, tell us more about you. Like, how'd you get where you are now, where you're publishing and launching this book on Uncommon Leadership?
Well, it's been a really, really long journey. You know, when I said I have a birthday today, it's number 70. And as I joke, and in some level, I'm not joking, I still think I'm 35. I'm very active. But you know, the journey has been, I started my career very early, very young age with McDonald's in their management training program, progressed through, ultimately have helped build 3 companies as an executive. One of those companies was a publicly traded company, and I ran our largest division, which ended up being 150 million in revenue, 1,200 employees in 7 locations around the US. We sold that company in 2007. I stayed another year, retired, and looked around to figure out what was next, and very blessed that God showed me the path to become an international leadership consultant, executive coach. Launched my first company in 2009, started a lot of my certifications in the coaching world, ultimately sold some of that branding off and relaunched 10 years ago under the Uncommon Leadership Institute. And then, you know, the book, I've always wanted to write a book, Everett, for a long time. I consider myself a creative. I used to write a lot of poetry as a kid. And yeah, this book came about as a result of a speech and a workshop that I had done. And the last time I did it, I had it videoed and was watching it about a month later. And I went, that's the book I want to write next, or first, because there's a bigger book that I want to write that I plan to start writing next year that just seemed like Mount Everest. But this one seemed like something that I could get my head around. And so I started writing about a month before COVID, February of 2020.
Okay. What was your greatest inspiration for writing the book? I mean, what made you go, oh my goodness, this is the book I've got to write? It's not, I know you saw the speech, but it's I think more about your message, right? As to what you're trying to share with people.
Yeah, there's a couple different things. There's your question for me brings up two separate answers. And the first answer is what I've been able to do is codify the coaching and the consulting and leadership development work I've been doing, either as an executive myself leading teams, or then coaching one-to-one or coaching teams, to where there were these themes that kept bubbling up. For example, one of them, in fact, the speaker that I had last night at our launch party talked about is, you're always leading. You're never not leading. This is something that would just blow me away, especially when I coached in Switzerland at IMD, the International Institute of Management Development, in their high performance leadership program. One of the pieces of feedback I got almost every time I coached in that program was, Ed, thank you. I never realized that I'm always leading. And it just, for me, it was profound. For other people, I'm thinking, wow, this simple concept for other people seems to be a game changer from a leadership standpoint. So, and also in my own personal journey, I had to completely rewrite a lot of my scripts and beliefs about who I was. So that's actually the first principle. Leadership starts with your beliefs. And then the second principle, leadership requires 20/20 vision. I am where I am today, and I do what I do today because in the early 90s, I spent a lot of time, as well as my family, in figuring out my values and my vision and my mission. And it's that vision that I've had since the early 90s that has continued to propel me to do what I do. And so, but the second part I want to answer, you didn't really ask this question, but I'm going to answer it this way. I had been thinking about writing this book from that workshop and speech, and one of my best friends from 8th grade was diagnosed with leukemia, and I'd gone to Charleston to see him, and I'd spent the day with him in the hospital that day. And I was sitting in my cousin's home in Charleston that night, and she was away and letting me use her home. And I just remember sitting there, and contemplating and praying, and, because it was very serious prognosis for my friend. And I just kept hearing this voice saying, get off your ass and write the book. And then that was the catalyst for me to finally start writing. So I started writing the book in my cousin's home, which is why we're going to come full circle and do the party Friday night in her home.
Wow.
That was
that must have been quite the moment. I mean, honestly, you're sitting there with a loved one, looking at death and thinking about, I'm guessing, the experiences that you've had in your life and the wisdom that you've accumulated, and how do you pass this on? How do you get this out to others that they can implement it, rather than just keeping it all bottled up in your brain, right?
That's exactly right, Everett. It's just, this is about legacy. This is about making a difference in the world and making a difference in the lives of other people. And you're not guaranteed another breath, right? And so that was the catalyst to really finally get off my rear end and get going.
Yeah, and I think obviously 2020 reminded a lot of people of that.
Yeah.
On a brighter note, Chris says, "Happy birthday, Ed."
Thank you, Chris.
What a great way to celebrate your birthday. I know we were talked about this starting some months ago about would it be great to be launching around this time, and here we are. So
we made it happen. You guys made it happen. Thank you so much, Chris, Malia, and Everett. What a team!
I tell you, and you too. You had a lot of work to do to get us to this point too. So
yeah, just a little.
It goes all around. So let's dive into the book. Let's dive into the book, and I'm going to ask you in a little bit about a story from the book. But you talk about 3 principles to
Mhm.
drive greater awareness, engagement, and psychological safety. So let's dive in. What do you want to share from there? You briefly mentioned the three principles, but one of them starts with belief, right? You said leadership starts with belief. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
We can, yeah. I mentioned the high performance leadership program that I coached at IMD in Switzerland, and I remember telling the professor of leadership several times, we really should focus more on belief systems here. The program is incredibly powerful, but we were missing this one element that people show up every day with scripts and beliefs that are either empowering them or not empowering them. And a lot of what they believe about themselves, they don't really own, meaning that it was given to them by well-meaning parents or authority figures, teachers, friends, even for that matter. And so we arrive at adulthood with some faulty beliefs about who we are. And if we're really going to transform who we are and seek higher goals, higher achievement, whatever it may be you want to do in your life, you really have to examine what you believe about yourself. One of the lines I have in there is, if you don't believe in yourself, why would anybody else believe in you? Wow. And so it's understanding fundamentally what your beliefs are, your core beliefs, and are they driving you? And empowering you in a positive manner? Or are they holding you back? I do reference an authority on the concept of imposter syndrome. And I'd referenced the initial study that was done in the 70s by a couple of professors from Kennesaw State in Atlanta. And their takeaway was that imposter syndrome was a woman thing. It was a female thing. Claire Josa, who's in the UK, has become the most recent leading authority on imposter syndrome, and did a landmark study, I think right prior to COVID, that showed that 49% of men deal with imposter syndrome and 52% of women. And there's a big difference between imposter syndrome and just lack of confidence. Imposter syndrome is you're constantly looking over your shoulder wondering, oh my God, are they going to find out I'm a fraud? And it really is debilitating. It doesn't unleash creativity and innovation. So that's the amount of people. So what we're saying is about half the population is walking around with imposter syndrome.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And it's debilitating. And I just had a recent conversation with someone who was really struggling with this, and they've already read some of the book, and they've connected to my story of a young lady I was coaching who didn't have a college degree, and it was that one thing that was really holding her back of believing in who she was and who she could be. Was, I don't have a college degree. And in this conversation I had recently, somebody else was dealing with that exact same issue. So it's just amazing how much our belief systems drive us and direct us either in a positive way or not so positive.
I can relate really personally to that. So in a prior career, I was a vocational rehab counselor and worked with injured workers to get them back to work. And for the first several years, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm afraid people are going to find out I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And yet, all these people were sending me clients. I had developed a great reputation. 10 years in, I went, my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm afraid that people are going to find out I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then they started hiring me to be an expert witness and testify in trials. And 30 years on, until I finally hung up my shoes or whatever, I always felt like, oh my goodness, they're going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. And yet they all were convinced I knew what I was doing and kept hiring me to share my expertise because they apparently felt I was an expert.
Right.
And so I believe it. You
Yep.
talk about that. I think, wow.
Yeah, and also, Everett, I also talk about there's many segments. In fact, that chapter, that section of the book is the deepest, the broadest, if you will, because I also cover, what do you believe about others, and cite some great research about how what we think about other people affects how we show up, and cite a study that a professor did with school children. And then I look at what do you believe about change? What do you believe about talent development? So it's a very robust section of the book that I think covers ground the early reviews I'm getting is people are saying that this is something that really is standing out about the book for them, is the addressing and dealing with the belief system.
Okay, excellent. What you also talk about that leadership requires 20/20 vision. You mentioned that briefly.
Yeah.
Can you go into that in a little more depth?
Well, so I don't know how many years ago it was. I was doing a speech to a group of SHRM people, SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers in Louisiana, about 100 people in the room. And I put up a slide of Gallup's information on employee engagement. And it was 13 years of the data. And virtually nothing had changed, meaning that they were showing that only 30% of the population in the United States were engaged in their workplace. And I popped the slide up, and I didn't prep it at all. I just said, here's a slide from Gallup, and Gallup's an authority on employee engagement. Companies spend billions of dollars with Gallup measuring employee engagement. And I put the slide up and said, anybody have an observation? And a hand went up immediately. Nothing has changed. And I went, exactly. And I asked the question then, I said, are we measuring the right data? Are we really looking at employee engagement? And then lo and behold, what falls in my lap in the next 6 months, a study by IBM that proved in their mind and in their research that the number one driver for employee engagement was leadership future vision. So that's the catalyst for that concept. But then I rewind the tape and I go back and we had a significant reinvention of who we were and who I was. And a part of that in the early 90s, Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, really affected me along with several other books. But I did the work. We did the work in looking at who am I? What are my values? What is my vision? What's my mission? And knowing what that has done for me the last 30 years, because I did that work in 1992, roughly 92, 93. It's been that North Star such that when I got off track, I was able to tack back to head toward and also recognizing that God had me on the planet for a reason, that he had preserved my life for a reason, and I wanted to fulfill that vision that I believe that God had imparted to me. So, and again, I start that section off with a deep conversation about values as well as defining your values and how important that is, and then developing the vision statement and developing the mission statement, which is the who, what, where, when, and why of your vision. So one of the analogies I use in there, and I reference John F. Kennedy's speech in Rice University in 1962, when he set the vision for putting a man on the moon. Mm-hmm. And, it's that North Star that we need in our lives that allows us to know if we're on track or if we're off track. But to me, it's just, I don't know, it's like the fuel, the rocket fuel that gets you up every day heading where you're going.
So I appreciate that. And you think of Kennedy saying, what did he say? 10 years, 10 years we'll be on the moon. And a lot of people thought that's crazy, right?
Yeah. And my favorite line in there, in fact, I was doing this workshop one day and the sound didn't work, and I had to go in and do my best John F. Kennedy impersonation and actually say what he was saying. And my favorite line of that speech is, "It's not because it's easy, it's because it's hard."
It's a much better impression than I would do, quite frankly. So another question here is, you talked about leadership being in the eye of the beholder. Yeah. Address that, if you would. And is that more about the imposter syndrome, or is that?
No, it's completely different. What it means is what I want from a leader, from the person leading me, and what you want may be very different things. Most of us, especially those of us that have hung around churches or read a Bible, know the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have done unto you. Well, Dr. Roger Berkman, the creator of the Berkman Method Assessment, had a major impact on me. And he taught us, and all of us Berkman consultants, the platinum rule, which is do unto others as they would want done unto them. And I tell the story of when I took over in 2004 as president of the company's largest division. And 6 months in, we were on a phenomenal trajectory. We were doing incredibly well. We had righted the ship. But I brought in an executive coach, and Kathy Kramer from the Kramer Institute in St. Louis, who was unfortunately no longer with us. But she did a 360, talked to my boss, talked to my peers, talked to my direct reports, and sat me down after she wrote up the qualitative review. And she gave me all these wonderful, I think it was 5 positive things that she'd found out about me as a leader. But then she said, but Ed, there's one thing you got to fix. And I was thinking I had it all nailed. I didn't think there was anything I was going to have to fix, Everett. I thought I was, and she just said, Ed, you haven't looked over your shoulder. You're running at a pace that about half of your team can't keep up with you. You've got to slow down. And so that was a pivotal moment for me in my leadership career, because I had the tool in my hand to know what those people wanted and needed. It was the Berkman Method Assessment. And in fact, I devote 2 chapters to it, which is, I got some feedback from a couple different people that maybe I had overdone writing about the Berkman, but I had to, because it's been an integral part of who I am for the last 23 years. But just this concept that my natural leadership style was working for half my team, but I was killing about the other half of my team. So that's really the essence of leadership being in the eye of the beholder. And especially in today's world and that's why we use the term psychological safety and brain-based leadership, which I'm certified in from the Academy of Brain-Based Leadership in California. A leader that can create that environment where people are free to take risks, where people are free to explore, people are free to have healthy conflict, to produce an environment that allows each person to play to win. That's what we're looking to do. And you can't do that if you only lead one way.
Okay. Well, let me remind people that your book is available today, Uncommon Leadership for the New Reality. You can pick it up today on Amazon. The paperback is there, but the Kindle is on sale, on special for 99 cents. So we'd certainly encourage you to pick up the Kindle version of the book to support Ed in the launch, and more importantly, to learn how to be an uncommon leader. Now, Ed, there's a story about sock shoe. Can you go into that with us?
Sure. In fact, it was funny. We were talking about it last night at the birthday party at our house. My daughter was talking about it because it seems that one of her friends told her that had heard the story that that they really can't get dressed anymore without thinking about me or in that story. So the story is this. And when my daughter was 7 years old, we were getting ready for church one Sunday morning, and she already had on her nice little Sunday dress and sat down on the edge of the bed. And I went to put on her black little patent leather shoes. And as I was buckling the first strap, in her little high voice, she goes, Daddy, when you get dressed, do you put on sock, shoe, or sock, shoe? And Everett, I'm not exaggerating. I was still bent over, and I just kind of looked up at her, and I went, I got to sit down and think about this. And I sat there on the edge of the bed, and I went, sock, shoe, lace, because on that day I had shoes that had laces. And she proudly goes, Daddy, I'm a sock, shoe person. And so what did she do in that moment? She caused me to think about something that I did every day that I never thought about. Now, brain scientists will tell you that we do 95 to 99% of everything that we do on what I call automagic mode. And there's that's biological. Our brain, if we had to think about everything we were doing, our brain would burn up the glycogen and we wouldn't be able to function. So our brain looks for efficiencies. It builds superneural pathways in your brain to be able to do things without having to think about them actively on a constant basis. But when you think about that, I read a study a few years ago about looking at how many decisions do we make every day. And a team of researchers studied some teachers that determined by the end of the school day, those teachers had made about 5,000 decisions. Most of those decisions were made on what I call automagic mode. So when you think about how much of your life is being run on autopilot, then if you connect that to then leadership is in the eye of the beholder. Do you really understand who you are and how you affect other people with your leadership style? We call it the person effect. We have an energy field we show up with. and we affect people. And we've all experienced this, where you meet somebody for the first time and you think, wow, I'd love to spend more time with that person. We could be best friends. Or you meet somebody for the first time and go, I don't know about them. So so that's the sock, sock, shoe, shoe story. And it just really amplifies how much we do without thinking about it. And I told my daughter last night, because she says, I think I've changed now. I think I'm a sock, sock, shoe, shoe person. But I ran into somebody a few years ago, about 3 years ago, maybe, before COVID, who literally said, damn you, Ed Chaffin. I did one of your workshops and I can't get dressed without thinking about you every day.
Oh my goodness.
I just said, thank you. I said, you're welcome.
There's a leadership lesson there too, is to come up with some unusual example that just it hits people in their everyday lives, and they just can't help it. Now I'm going to have a problem. I know I'm going to be sitting there getting dressed. I'm going to be thinking about dang Ed.
That's right. You're going to be cursing my name when you get dressed in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
So what are you, Everett? Are you a sock, sock, shoe, shoe, or a sock?
I am most definitely a sock, sock, shoe, shoe, lace. I have to think about the lace part. So nowadays I just slip on the hiking shoes. So
there you go.
It doesn't matter, but I'm definitely sock, sock, shoe, shoe.
All right.
So it's funny, Ed. I have a business coach friend of mine who he used to say, he says, if I wake up, like, I think it was something like, if I wake up more than 3 times thinking of a specific client, then I have to fire that client. Meaning that client is becoming so difficult and such a drain on my head and my every other thing that I have to fire that client.
Wow.
So now, Ed, I don't know what we're going to do, because the next 3 mornings I'm going to be getting my shoes on and I'm going to be thinking about you.
No, it's going to go beyond 3 mornings. Trust me. Get back to me about 3 years, Everett.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's too much. It's too much. All right. So there's some other comments coming in I wanted to share with you. So
I think I saw one from my #1 fan up there, who's upstairs right now. So, but yeah. No.
Which one's your #1 fan? I better pull her.
My wife, Eva. So.
Oh, that's Eva. Well, let's make sure to bring her up here then. That's great. She's just saying, great information, well written. Congratulations, big day. Yeah, for sure. And she's got to be a trooper, because I don't think anyone writes a book alone. Honestly,
so
she's been probably putting up with you on this journey as well.
For over 41 years too.
Yeah. There's that other journey, right?
Right.
Oh, fantastic. All right, let me go back to Ashley's comment here. Do you understand who you are and how you affect other people with your leadership style? I think she's sharing one of your quotes. Yeah. Fantastic. She also had shared this earlier, and I didn't have time to bring it up, but half the population walking around with imposter syndrome. Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Chris, by the way, said she's a flip-flop person.
So she dispenses with the multiple tiers.
That's it. Forget the rest. She posed a great question and comment here. So let me try to go through this. You talk in your book about when we lead all the time. In other words, people are watching us all the time. When you find someone who you can tell is a leader, but they don't think of themselves that way, what is something you do to plant the seed that they should go toward a leadership role?
Chris, that's a great question. I talk about that in the book. This played out quite often at IMD in that high performance leadership program, where at some point, and it was a 6-day intensive program, we would start at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon and finish at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And literally several days we were going 12, 14 hours. Very intense program, but there was about the 3rd day or so of the program, very often I'd look at someone and say, if you could only see yourself the way I'm seeing you, and I think the rest of the people in our group are seeing you, you have so much untapped power. What are you afraid of? What's holding you back? And then almost always the other people in the group, and when I coached a group of 6 or 7 leaders. that would just jump on that and talk about, oh my God, Ed's right, you know. And so I'm coaching a young man right now who's a VP, and we had a coaching call yesterday, and we had just reset his goals with his boss on Friday. And one of them he hasn't spent much time on in the 4 months we've been working together. But early on, I looked at this young man and I just said, do you realize who you are? And he said, what do you mean? I said, then ask another question. Do you want to be a CEO? And he goes, well, I haven't thought about it. And I said, well, think about it for a minute. So punchline with this young man is he is now starting to see himself as the CEO. And there's this one thing he's got to add in his toolkit that will propel him into that role. So my job as a coach, when I come across someone where there's just so much unbelievable untapped power, is figuring out what is the one or two things that will elevate that person. In this particular young man's case, it's his communication style and skills. And he's tied up in some of his belief systems. He was raised in a very humble family where you don't brag about who you are, and you know, you're not boisterous, you're not loud. And so if he's willing to go beyond his belief systems about communications, in 3 to 5 years, he can be a CEO of any company he wants to be. So I just think I think I'm answering Chris's question is you figure out what is it that if they unleash will take them to that proverbial next level. And that's what my job is as a coach, is to help hold up that mirror.
Okay. And thank you, Chris, for asking that question. So Ed, we kind of wrap up about this point. First, I'd like to know if there's any other point that you'd like to share now, and then I'm going to ask you to share how people can reach out to you to get in touch with you directly.
We've covered a lot of ground. I mean, I think I've been working together for a while. We could talk for another hour minimum if we
at least. At least, I'm pretty sure we could work a 3-day workshop out.
There you go. Exactly.
Doing this.
So I mean, we'll just cut it off at that point. Ed@edchaffin.com is my email. We just redid the website. You can find me there, find the things that we do. I'm finally starting to build a team for the Uncommon Leadership Institute. I'm planning the next 10 years so that, when I'm 80, we'll have another big party and celebration for some other achievements or whatever. So if I can be of service, it was interesting how people see you, and this goes back to, leadership being in the eye of the beholder. I had several people come up to me last night wanting to know, or do you still do coaching? Do you still do working with teams? I'm like, nothing. And I'm thinking, why would they even ask that question? Oh, they see me as an author now, right?
That's exactly right. You're a big time author.
Yeah. And then one of the ladies was describing what her challenges were. And she's, can I reach out to you? I think I need a coach. And I'm, yeah, I didn't just quit being a coach because I wrote a book.
Isn't that interesting? And it speaks to the power of authorship and the power of a book that I had actually a client of mine who told a fantastic story. So David Martin was talking about how he's been doing coaching and consulting forever, and he goes every 5 years or whatever, goes back to his hometown and they have a class reunion, and there's some gal that works there, and she has known what he has done forever. And then they're at their, 30th or 35th class reunion or whatever, and he happens to put a copy of the book, in her hand. And then she says, oh my goodness, we need to talk, and nothing's changed other than, hello, other than a book. She's known all along he has this expertise that he, could help her and all of this, but because of the book, it's like it flashes. Crazy.
And I promise you that my high school friends are thinking, Eddie Chaffin wrote a book. Eddie Chaffin is an international leadership consultant, because I promise you I didn't get voted most likely to succeed.
Did you? Well, that's okay. I had a friend who was voted most likely to sculpt Half Dome out of his mashed potatoes. So quite literally. And he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
So, well, Ed, thank you so much for your time today. We're excited about your book launch. It's not over. So I'm going to say goodbye to you. I'm going to promote your book one more time, and then I'm going to wrap up this live cast. All right,
Thank
Ed?
you. Appreciate it very much.
Oh,
You got
man.
a phenomenal job.
We love having you. You've been just a blast, honestly, as a client and as a friend. So let me do my job here and take us out. So here we are, and again, just encourage you to pick up Ed's book today, 99 cents for the Kindle version on Amazon. The paperback is there as well. Grab this for yourself, but also grab this for other people that you know are on a leadership track or in a leadership position or should be on a leadership track. There's so much wisdom in here that Ed has packaged together for you. So certainly pick that up. Thank you again for joining us today. If we can ever help you here at Ignite Press with your book, with your message, with your mission, simply go to our website. That is ignitepress.us, not .com, but ignitepress.us. And you can schedule a complimentary book consultation there directly with me. You'll have access to my calendar. You can pick a time that works for you, and we can talk about your book and your message. Thank you again for joining us today on our book launch livecast.